Fred Moore served the Royal Canadian Air Force as a pilot and test pilot, with responsibility for testing and acceptance of RCAF aircraft and development of flight simulators. Leaving military service as a squadron leader, he continued in aviation as a senior manager in civil aviation and the helicopter industry. Born in Victoria, British Columbia, on November 26, 1928, Fred Moore was the only son and the first of 7 children born to his parents, Alex and Benny, followed by 6 sisters, Cynthia, Sylvia, Marcia, Martha, Pamela, and Alexis. Following high school graduation, Fred was selected for entry into the 1st Air Force class at Royal Roads Military College in Victoria. He graduated on May 1, 1949, and joined the Royal Canadian Air Force, selected for pilot training. And following basic training with his class at No. 1 Manning Depot in the summer of 1949, then flying on Harvard and Expediter aircraft, he earned his wings as a pilot officer at No. 1 Flying Training School at RCAF Station Centralia. And his first posting was to the Winter Experimental Establishment in Edmonton, where he flew the famed warbird, the P-51 Mustang, and had the opportunity to experience winter survival training with personnel from the RCAF, the USAF, and other organizations. At 23, in 1952, he was accepted into the United States Air Force Experimental Test Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Promoted to flight lieutenant, Fred returned to Canada and was assigned the responsibility for flight testing and acceptance of jet aircraft for the RCAF. In 1953, he was transferred to Canadair in Montreal to take command of RCAF flight testing and acceptance of the Canadair T-33 Silver Star, the F-86 Sabre aircraft, and assisted in development and acceptance of simulators for the F-86. And at Avro and de Havilland in Toronto, Fred was responsible for flight testing of the Avro CF-100, as well as other de Havilland types, including flight testing of the aircraft's Advanced Weapons Fire Control System. Fred Moore was a pioneer in the Canadian flight simulator industry with a pivotal role ensuring that aircraft and simulators met RCAF specifications. From 1955 to 1958, he was in charge of accepting 18 different types from 8 Canadian aircraft companies. In 1955, he was also assigned to Canadian Aviation Electronics Limited in Montreal for RCAF assistance in developing simulators for CF-100 aircraft.
Designed to meet a Royal Canadian Air Force specification for a long-range, all-weather day and night interceptor, the CF-100 is capable of operating anytime, anywhere, in the sub-zero temperatures of the Arctic or beneath the blazing sun of the tropics. These tests are but preliminary to the intensive pre-delivery flight testing the aircraft will undergo before its final release for Air Force service. The aircraft is first test flown by one of the Avro test pilots. The test pilots are men with a wide background of technical and flying experience, including operational flying. They know the high capabilities inherent in the CF-100 and ensure that each aircraft meets these exacting standards before it is cleared for delivery. When the aircraft passes the test pilot's critical appraisal, it is ready for the final stages of its pre-delivery preparation, harmonization, and calibration of the armament and fire control system.
Later, at RCAF headquarters, Fred produced the blueprint for the 104 Starfighter simulator used by the RCAF and German, Netherlands, Belgian, and Italian Air Forces. On October 9, 1963, Fred took his release from the Air Force with the rank of squadron leader, accepting a position with Northwest Industries in Edmonton, Alberta. It was a move that saw him relocate with his family to Alberta's capital city and start a new phase in his career. The company had been acquired by CAE and was involved in the repair and overhaul of RCAF aircraft. Fred's new responsibilities were to spearhead the company's diversification into industrial products and later into civil aviation. By 1968, he was Vice President of Marketing and Contracts, with responsibility for civilian aircraft sales and service. He also oversaw the company's fiberglass reinforced plastics division, including development of 5,000-gallon underground storage tanks, which replaced steel tanks. A new opportunity arose for Fred in September 1970 as marketing manager of Okanagan Helicopters Limited, and he moved to Richmond, BC. In 1972, he was promoted to Vice President Marketing. In 1981, he was promoted to Senior Vice President, and his responsibility included development of new business and the company's growth in the international offshore oil support market. The company flew helicopters across the Arctic and the Atlantic, and routinely ferried helicopters from Canada to and from India, Thailand, and China. In 1987, the company was sold to become part of the new Canadian Helicopters Corporation, with Moore remaining as Senior Vice President. In aviation for half a century, first as an RCAF officer, then as a senior executive in the industry, and as chairman of the Helicopter Association International, Fred Moore was well respected in Canadian and international aviation fraternities. Fred flew more than 50 types of aircraft, ranging from single-engine trainers to four-engine bombers, airliners, and the fastest jet aircraft of the RCAF. In 1991, Fred retired from Canadian Helicopters Corporation, retained his youthful interest in fishing, and he continues to fly private light aircraft at every opportunity. Frederick Moore was inducted as a member of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at ceremonies held in Calgary, Alberta on May 29, 2014.